Pretty exciting day. We're doing our first live podcast here from the Sweet Recording Studios. Ken Dunek, ex-Philadelphia Eagles tight end. Mark Eckel covered the Eagles for years for NJ.com and the Trenton Times. And, you know, Mark, doesn't it seem like it was like 2 weeks ago that we just did the Super Bowl wrap? I mean, we're doing training camp, and pretty soon we'll be now we're doing draft and then training camp, and then before you know it, we'll be right back into the season.
I think it's been 8 years that I've been gone, and I've been living when I left.
Yeah, that is time does fly when you're not having fun, because it's not as much fun when you're not around here. But so I got to tell you, setting up for this, Joe Gangemi and I spent some time on the phone yesterday. And to plug into all my social media platforms, I had to give him all my passwords. So now I think Joe could actually wipe out my bank account if he wanted to. I use the same password pretty much for everything. It's we might be in trouble. But before we get into the draft and what the Eagles did and what the rest of the NFL did, and of course we'll cover the Shedeur Sanders fiasco. But just let me remind everybody that we're actually live and recording this at the Sweet Recording Studios in Mount Laurel. I mentioned Joe Gangemi. He's a wonderful guy and can produce your podcast and even build you a studio. Check out Joe at sweetrecording.com. Of course, our podcast is sponsored by Citywide Home Mortgage, my good friend Chris Wilhelm. And you can reach Chris at 609-294-4304. And then finally, Jersey Man Magazine had our event last week at Chickies and Pete's in South Philly. Phil Martelli was there. There's a new a book written by Aaron Bracey called Season on the Brink, I believe. No, not Season on the Brink. I'm forgetting the title now, but it's about that St. Joe's team with Jameer Nelson of 2003. Just started to read it. Compelling book. Phil did a wonderful job with us. So that's all the bookkeeping stuff. So what have you been up to, man? I know everybody knows you're living the good life in Myrtle Beach. What does a football beat writer do in the off season? I know you don't play golf and you don't drink that much. So how are you keeping busy?
Well, I've been busy. Well, the draft, I did a lot. I'm not really a beat writer anymore, so I'm never that busy.
Well, you're an insider. Yeah, now you're considered.
I'm working on a book with Hugh Douglas.
Okay. I did not know that.
I told you that.
No.
Did I tell you that?
I don't. I mean, hey, Mark, you might have, but I'm going to be 68 in a few weeks.
It's trans books. I've done other books for it. Reached out, and so Hugh Douglas and I are doing a book together. It'll be out. It won't be out maybe till the following season. I don't know why they're waiting so long. They'll have it early, but we're about a third of the way through. It's been
excellent. Excellent.
It's pretty good.
Hugh, of course, is still a major force in Philadelphia sports here at WIP, and met him on a couple of occasions. He's kind of a interesting guy, isn't he?
Very good player too. I didn't realize.
Yeah, he was good.
Career, I knew he was good, but now doing the book, looking up different games, he was really good. He was
yeah.
But anyway, this was an interesting draft in a lot of ways, I thought.
Yeah, give me your overall thoughts on the draft as a whole, and then what the Eagles did, and of course we'll go over some other stuff.
Well, the draft on a whole, I mean, it's crazy that the biggest story of the draft was a guy not getting drafted, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've never been involved. I've covered like 40 drafts now, and I've never seen a year where it was all about who's taking Sanders, right? And he kept falling. I mean, I felt bad for Cam Ward, to be honest with you. He was a number one pick. Usually the number one pick is the big story and the big fanfare. And he was kind of ignored almost because Travis, the Jacksonville makes a big trade with Cleveland to go up and get Travis Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
So I was talking about that. And then where's Shedeur Sanders going to go? And Tennessee and Cam Ward kind of got pushed aside like it didn't happen almost.
They did, but why do you think Shedeur Sanders fell? Here, I was reading a lot on this on the on Twitter and all the other platforms. Number one, he didn't participate in the Senior Bowl.
Okay.
Number two, he opted out of Shrine game practices and opted out of the game. 3, he did not participate at the NFL Combine on field workouts. and 4, he didn't interview well, and then 5, of course, you can factor in the father. Some teams probably not wanting to deal with that distraction. Do you agree those things all led to this?
4 and 5 are the most important
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of kids don't go to the senior. A lot of if you know you're going to be, if you think you're going to be a high, you don't. A lot of guys are begged off of that.
Mm-hmm.
I was told by someone that knows that the interviews process that he really um, wasn't not even like not that his arrogance or anything like that he didn't know football. Like when they asked him simple football questions or like when they put a play up on the board and say, "What do you do?" He knew the basics.
Mm-hmm.
He really that's all he knew. Like he wasn't very football savvy.
Well, they say they ran a very simple offense at Colorado, from what I've been reading too. Which
But
a
again,
lot of coaches want these players to be game ready when they draft them. It's not the way it used to be with quarterbacks. It is now, unfortunately. But
and I didn't think he was a first round. I mean, I thought he would go because quarterbacks go in the first round.
mm-hmm.
Like Jackson Dart.
Limited market though, right? There weren't that many teams. A lot of teams had a quarterback need drafted last year. You had May in New England, you had Bo Nix in Denver, and so there was a limited market for teams that actually needed and wanted quarterbacks, which is unusual. And the fact that next year's draft class is supposed to be much better.
Right. So I thought, but I never thought he'd last to the 5th round.
No.
I mean, although if
I felt bad for him, actually. He built a studio in his home.
A conspiracy theorist. And I was joking about this on Friday night.
Well, come on, let's create some controversy on our first live stream here.
Conspiracy was if I said if Cleveland takes him on the 3rd day, could this all have been a Cleveland was a team that everybody thought might take him, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't take him with the 3rd pick or the 2nd pick. All right, they traded down. All right, that's what they're doing. They're going to take him at 5. Then it was they took Mason Graham. Oh, well, Cleveland has the first pick of the 2nd round. They'll take him at the first pick of the 2nd. And they didn't take him there. And they didn't take him in. But I said, and I was half joking that if Cleveland takes him on Saturday, maybe the whole thing was set up that Cleveland's going to eventually take him. But let's make people like day 2 of the draft was the most watched day 2, I think, in draft history.
I'm sure.
And day 3 was the most watched day because everybody was watching to see where Sanders was going to go. Nobody usually only diehards care about the 4th, 5th round. Right. Well, I think more people watched it because it was a story now. I think.
And then as soon as the pick was made, the ratings went right down and returned it off. Well, so let's talk about the Eagles now. They lost some players. We lost Darius Slay, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham retired. There's talk that they're not going to extend Jordan Davis at the end of his current contract. The Dallas Goedert thing with the tight end, if they drafted a tight end, maybe Goddard was gone. So the Eagles had some needs to fill. They start out with round 1, the 31st pick. They actually trade up a slot for Jahad Campbell, linebacker from Alabama, 6'3", 235. Had surgery for a torn labrum after the scouting combine, which I think made him fall a bit. But, when you're drafting at the end of the 1st round, I think this is the type of player you're hoping to get, a guy that has top 10 potential, but maybe a little nicked up. There's not 100% confidence that he's going to be 100% by training camp, but you can get, a blue chip player with the 31st pick. I think the Eagles did pretty well with this.
I love this kid. He's one of my favorite players in the draft. I know this is what you can do when you win the Super Bowl. You win the Super Bowl, you can draft whatever. You can do anything you want because you just won the Super Bowl. Who's going to criticize you? But this kid, if he didn't have the shoulder, he has both shoulder problems. Yeah, he hurt both shoulders. So yeah, he has an injury. I won't say risk, but he has injuries. And if you're a team that needs a guy to come in right now and help you, well, this isn't your guy because he's probably not going to be. He's not going to win Rookie of the Year, Ken. Let's just say that he's not going to have a big rookie year. But, and as Howie Roseman said, and I counted it 5 times during his interview after they made this pick, 5 times Howie Roseman used the term long term. We're not concerned about him long term. We're not worried about our long term vision. He used long term 5 different times. that tells me that they're not even counting on him for 2025. If anything they get out of him as a rookie is a bonus. But this kid down the road is going to be a real good player.
Well, I think the Eagles drafted him at a position where he's going to replace Brandon Graham, really, because he plays that edge outside linebacker
Well, he can play
kind of a thing. Nolan Smith Jr. is kind of the same type of a player. They rushed him a lot. They play him on the line.
He's more than he can cover too.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's going to be interesting to see what Fangio is going to love him because he can use him a lot of. Yeah, he could blitz. There's no doubt he could blitz off the edge, but he could drop back. I mean, he's good. He's just a real good player. I love it. Like I said, he was one of my favorite players in the entire draft.
Now, interesting that the Eagles have him listed on their depth chart as the will linebacker, which is more of an inside position. So I really kind of thought he would be more on the outside, but
I think he could. I mean, they can line him up anywhere. They really can. And like I said, he could cover. He can cover tight end. He can cover a back out of the backfield. Alabama used him all different ways, and he was good at everything. He can. The Eagles haven't had a linebacker like this
since Zach Bond.
Well, that was one. That's going to be interesting. Zach Bond, I forgot Bond did cover pretty well too, didn't he?
Yeah. And they resigned Bond to a new deal, which is good to see that he's going to stick around. Let's go to the second pick, which is a pick actually I'm really excited about watching film on this kid, Andrew Makuba from Texas. He's a little bit undersized at 5'11", 186 pounds. As a matter of fact, they have him listed already as the starting safety, strong safety, and he would be one of the smallest ones in the league at that size. But he's got great hands, great ball skills, and he really hits, Ronnie Lott style. Nobody hit like Ronnie Lott, but he's in the conversation anyway. What do you think about Makuba too?
He's an interesting guy in that he played, I think, 2 or 3 years at Clemson, and really wasn't. He wasn't much.
He was a defensive player, the Atlantic Conference Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year 1 year for Clemson, his freshman year, and then Venable left, and it kind of went sour, and he went to Texas.
And he transferred to Texas, and he even said, transfer and changed my whole way of thinking and way of playing. He is a hitter, and he makes plays. He's a playmaker, but I do worry about that 180 some pounds. That's by today's standards, that's small for a safety.
Well, especially when the strong safety, has to cover tight ends a lot, and not so much under Fangio's Tampa 2 system, but you would. It is unusual to see a guy that small, and coincidentally, they've already made the move to move Cooper DeJean to nickelback. Starting nickelback, and
what he did last year more.
Yeah, they've got Kaylee Ringo listed as the starting left corner. We'll have to see all that shakes out.
I mean this
is all preseason, shuffle the deck kind of stuff. I agree. The Eagles with their third pick in round number 4, they go with Ty Robinson, defensive tackle from Nebraska, really athletic kid. He actually played on both sides of the ball at times at Nebraska, and I know you saw some film on him, Mark. What do you think?
He's a pass rushing interior lineman. So, he's what, 4th round pick, so you don't expect him to come in and make a major impact right away. But I think he'll rotate in. They did lose Milt Williams. Now I guess the other kid's going to start. But they're not real deep on that defensive line. So this kid will get an opportunity, I think. He can get. I mean, he had 7 sacks, I believe, last year at Nebraska. It isn't bad for an interior lineman. Also, a little undersized. I mean, he's 290 something, right? So
he's 6'5" and a half, 288 according to the draft stat.
90. So a little smaller than you would like for a 3-4 lineman, like compared to Carter and Davis, anyway, right? So he gives him a different look. I didn't mind that pick, 4th round. I was surprised they traded completely out of the 3rd round and got a bunch of 6th round picks and stuff like. I thought the Eagles did things I didn't think they were going to do this year. Now Campbell was a no-brainer. He's there. I love that. Like I said, I good things about Campbell and picking him. I thought because they didn't have, when they're a good team, their roster is pretty good. I thought they would move up from the third, right? Maybe use their third and move up to the top, middle of the third or top of the third, or use a third,
Hmm.
second, whatever. I thought they were going to try to get more quality than quantity, and instead they did the opposite. They moved out of the third. They moved out twice. They got a bunch of sixes and
Yeah.
everybody thinks differently. I just thought that I didn't think they would do that. I thought they would.
Well, I think they thought, like a lot of people thought, this was not a draft of a lot of superstars, but a pretty
Oh,
deep draft, and there was some value down there. It's the only
yeah,
thing
I would.
that I can think of.
Well, as we get to it, I did like some of their later picks.
Well, interestingly, the Eagles go defense on their first 5 draft choices. Later in the fifth round, they take Mac Williams, who's a cornerback from Central Florida, 5'10", 191 pounds. We have a need at depth at corner, and he's already listed as the backup nickel quarter. So I haven't seen much on Mac Williams.
That's a kid. I kind of think I do a little homework on the draft. I have nothing, and that came out of nowhere. I mean, none of my guys mentioned him. None of I have. They obviously the Eagles know something that I don't know because they took him, so they like him. But I can't comment on him because I don't know much about him.
What about the next pick? Is it Smell Mondin? Is that how you pronounce the name? Smell Mondin Jr. out of Georgia. I know you like guys from Georgia.
Not as much as the Eagles do, but
yeah.
But he's a kid. Another one. He's athletic as all get out. He needs to learn. Again, fifth round. You don't expect him. He'll help him. I think if nothing else, he's going to be a real good special teams player. Fifth round kid linebacker. You know who he is, kind of. I mean, I'm going to go way back here. He's like Reese. Who wasn't a bad.
You're not going too far way back. I mean, Reese played a lot later than I did. So come on, man.
And I'm saying,
I had a face mask. It wasn't a leather helmet. Come on. Let's go. Drew Kendall, offensive line. Hey, by the way, some of these kids are so big and I remember I was looking at the draft and the sizes. Drew Kendall is 6'4", 300 as a center.
And he's unsized.
Miles Hinton is 6'7", 325 as a tackle. Do you know, on the 1980 Eagles, I don't think we had one 300-pound player. Maybe Dennis Bigfoot Harrison might have been the only guy that was even close.
What was Big?
We had nobody that was 300 pounds. Now everybody's 300 pounds. Centers are 300 pounds. It's crazy.
Right.
Kids are getting big.
This Kendall, and you're saying he's 290. What is he? 290 something?
Yeah. Well, you see, they have him listed as 6'4", 300.
Okay, I saw 290 something.
Yeah.
They're saying he's a little undersized
as a center.
And let me say about Kendall, his father played in the league for a long time.
I know. I saw that. Yeah.
Seattle. Yeah. He was a first-round pick for Seattle. Whatever you know. Very smart. Which is important if you're going to play.
Well, it is important for offensive linemen. Believe it or not, people laugh at that, but the most complicated offensive system in football is the offensive line, because of all the read you have to do and the defense shifting and the play responsibilities.
Calls, right? So
and you have to make switches and pass the stunts, and it's much more difficult than it would seem. Now, the next pick is a favorite of mine. Go ahead. Sorry.
I see that kid coming in. He'll be a backup, obviously, because they have their center in place. But he's gonna be a starter in this league. If not for the Eagles, if it works out where he never gets a chance, someone else is gonna sign him when the time comes. He's a good player. That was a nice pick.
The Eagles go with a quarterback in the next round. Now I live in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. This is a Mount Laurel native, Kyle McCord. Quarterback. He went to Syracuse. He actually went to high school, St. Joe's Prep. We have a pretty crowded quarterback room now. What do you think of this? What is this just for an arm in camp, or does he have a chance?
Well, Dorian Thompson. Since you brought it up, Dorian Thompson Robinson. He might be the worst quarterback in the NFL. He's terrible. Don't
sugarcoat it.
Yeah, he's terrible.
The guy might be watching, Mark. You're going to send him into a fit of depression now because, everybody watches the Bird Brains live with Ken and Mark. I mean, the guy's
I'm sorry, but he's just terrible. When they got him, I said,
what? Well, why'd we get him? Was it a throw-in? I mean, for an arm, I guess.
We'll give you a 5 for Pickett, but you got to take Robinson off the hands. Because he's not any good. I mean, again, maybe they'll work with him. It happened before where a guy goes from one team to another and different coaching, different things, and maybe it worked, but he's not very. I mean, I was surprised they took a quarterback. I mean, at that point, I mean, Tanner McKee's the backup, right? Isn't that why they traded?
Yes, definitely the backup.
So
Yeah, and they like him. They like him, but
there's no reason not to.
you know, hey, listen, you got to have depth at the position. You're only one or two injuries away from the third guy playing.
If your third guy's playing, it's a season. It's kind of a wrap.
Well, I know they said that about Nick Foles too. Look how that happened.
Third.
I know.
He was never third. He was second. I don't know. I didn't like that. Of all their picks.
Oh, I was surprised. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I like it or not like it. I was just surprised that they did it.
I just didn't think it was needed. I was taking a tight end.
Well, you can never go wrong with taking tight ends, of course.
That surprised me because I thought tight end. This was a very good tight end draft. Very. That was probably the strongest position, top to bottom. I mean, you saw two go in the first round. You saw and I thought the Eagles were looking for a tight end. I thought, it looked like Dallas Goedert might be moved. He still might be. Who knows? He's in the last year of his deal either way. So I was surprised. I was very surprised that they didn't take a tight end somewhere.
Well, the Bears took Colston Loveland with the 10th pick. And then the Colts took Tyler Warren out of Penn State with the 14th pick. So
he's going to be a star.
So it's unusual to see tight ends go that far up in the first round.
They put Mason Taylor in the second round. He's going to be really good too. Mason Taylor's son, which is kind of funny. Jason Taylor, the Hall of Famer for the Dolphins, and this kid goes to the arch rival Jets, which will be interesting.
So who's ever signed that paycheck? That's where the loyalty is, Mark. You know that. We talked about Miles Hinton, big kid out of Michigan, offensive tackle. Eventually we got to replace Lane Johnson. So this is a move that I'm interested in. We go with Cameron Williams out of Texas. You know much about him?
Well, let me tell you about Cam Williams.
Okay.
He was considered, and they got him, what, 6th round?
Yes, 207th pick in the 6th round.
He was supposed to be like during the season and stuff, right? He was considered one of the top, I wouldn't say top 10 tackles. They had him maybe late second, middle to late third. He was second, a day 2 pick, second or third round. Everybody had him. Had a great year for Texas. Then when Texas played Georgia in the SEC title game, he had a really, really bad game. Georgia killed him.
Yeah.
That kind of soured people on him a little bit. And that's why he fell, I think. Plus he had some nagging injuries, but he's going to the best offensive line coach. And I mean, one bad game shouldn't kill you. Maybe he didn't feel good. Maybe his girlfriend broke up. Who knows why he had a bad game. Plus Georgia's pretty good too. But, if he doesn't play in that game, if Texas doesn't play Georgia in that game, that kid's he's gone by the 3rd round. So
interesting how one game can make that much of a difference.
It's SEC. Everybody has stuff at that game. They walk away saying, I don't want that kid. So that one game really, really hurt his stock, I think. But that's a good pick. If you can get a kid like that in the 6th round, and then Stoutland works with him, you might have something there. Again, none of these guys are other than their first 2 picks. None of these guys are going to play much next year. Well, one kid will play special teams.
Right.
From Georgia.
Yeah. Let's go to the last pick, and then we'll do a little review here. The 209th pick, Antoine Powell Ryland, edge rusher out of Virginia Tech. They have him listed as 3rd on the right offensive linebacker depth chart. What do you think?
Defense.
That's where they have. That's where they have him listed as an outside linebacker.
At that point, he's athletic, a little undersized as well. But again, at that point, you're hoping the guy makes the team. But again, if I play some special teams, but this wasn't. Again, when you win the Super Bowl, Eagles have some needs, but it's mostly when they were looking for depth.
What kind of a grade do you give the Eagles? I'm going to give them an A- to a B+ grade here. I think that from what I've seen from the limited tape that I've been able to view, I don't dislike any of these choices other than the question mark about taking a quarterback at number 6. What kind of a grade would you give the Eagles?
I don't grade the players until you see them play. But for what I like to look at, what they did or didn't do. And I'm going to give them a solid B only like again the quarterback was they threw that pick away. And somebody else, I would have liked to have seen a tight end and a wide receiver.
So let's talk about tight end. Dallas Goedert. You have to resign him now, right? I mean,
he's signed, and he is signed.
Well, he's. I thought, is he up or he's going into his last contract year?
Last year.
Okay.
And I think he wants an extension like anybody else going into.
Yeah, that's probably the.
They don't want to give it to him, obviously, or they would have done it. So he'll just play out his last year, and then next year we have to get a tight end, or maybe they swing a trade between. I mean, they're not playing this Sunday, right? So they have time.
A couple players of local ties, like we mentioned. Jahad Campbell, the first pick, is from Timber Creek High School down here in Winslow Township, New Jersey. And I mentioned Kyle McCord, the quarterback, is from Mount Laurel. What about the rest of the NFL? I thought Dallas did okay. I'm going to give them a similar kind of a grade to the Eagles. I thought the Giants did very well with their draft, and I thought Washington was down the line. What do you think about the rest of the division, how they did?
Well, the Giants did what they had to do. I don't know. We'll see again. Abdel Carter's going to be. He's wonderful. He might have been the best player in the draft. That was a great pick.
You like the fact that they didn't take a quarterback at 3 because they signed Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston.
They got the guy that they would have taken at 3 at 20 something. So I don't mind. That was smart. The Giants aren't usually smart. They were smart this year. They didn't get suckered into taking the quarterback at 3, and then they made the move back in the bottom of the first round. And now again, I'm not the biggest Jackson Dart fan. I think, but we'll see. This was not a good quarterback year.
No.
Not compared to last year, especially, but that was a smart. And if you're Brian Dable and Joe Shane, the coach and general manager, they may have bought themselves some time. Right?
Well, that's what this is all about. They have to draft players that will help them right now because they're probably on a 1-year window.
Well, I'm saying now they have their young quarterback, so they can say, "Hey, we give us
let us stick around for a while.
Let
us develop this kid." Yeah,
because Dart probably won't play this year. Russell Wilson will be their quarterback, I would think, at least at the start of the season.
I think they might even wind up trading Jameis Winston out of that 2 slot. I think that's a real possibility too. So, well, listen, that half hour went really quick. I want to tell everybody that Mark and I will be back at some point in training camp, giving a review of what we see in the practice, and then, of course, the NFL season coming up is going to be a lot of fun. The Eagles are defending Super Bowl champions. We don't get to say that very often, and it's going to be a fun year covering this. By the way, we'd love for you to interact with us. If you're on the live stream, you can send us a note. We can interact with you, and you can be a part of this. And then from a sponsorship standpoint, any businesses watching, we'd love to have you consider us as a sponsor for this podcast. We're on every week, and we try to do a good job of supporting and promoting our sponsors. So you can contact me, Ken at jerseymanmagazine.com, and we can get that going. So for my partner, Mark Eckel, I'm Ken Dunek at the Sweet Recording Studios. Thanks again to our host, Joe Gangemi. And we will see you next time, everybody. Go Birds. Take care.